Built it right, built it strong, built it fast, built it done, built it true, built it real, yeah, I built it.
Hello everybody. It is a beautiful morning here, brisk, a cool morning here in Idaho. One thing I grew up in Florida and the days never got super long because growing up in South Florida, very south, you're that much closer to the equator. And so in the summer, the hour might go, an hour, maybe 2 hours longer in the day, or the sunlight, right? But here in Idaho, as we approach the midsummer, June 21st, the summer solstice, the days get very, very long. And so we're around 7 in the morning, and it is a bright, bright, sunshiny day. And I love it. So it is one of those nice perks of being up a little bit higher in latitude. Anyway, what should we be talking about this morning? I think what was on my mind was around identifying or typing people in their preferences for tasks on a project. Just thinking about, how do you know when you're talking with someone, or how do you know when you're working with someone on your team, what kind of stuff they like to do? And granted, you could ask them, well, what's the fun in that? Right? We like the party trick. Trying to figure out what is it that people really enjoy doing when they're on a team project. And one nice thing about making pattern is it gives you a mental model, it gives you a framework to work off of when it comes to identifying the tasks people enjoy doing on a project. Maybe you're not familiar with making pattern, maybe it's your first time hearing about it, but basically it's a structured language, a structured vocabulary of how, sorry, my dog's got to go to the bathroom. A structured vocabulary for how projects work, how making something, getting something done works. And really it just says that you're going to build a solution to meet an identified need using your resources. And to do that, you're going to do some work, right? In order to build that solution, to meet that need using those resources, you got to do work. And really there are only 6 groups of tasks that we do when we do work to make that happen. And that is, we scope the project, we use our resources to scope out what needs are actually addressable. We use our needs to tell us what resources we need to provide. So that second one is called provisioning. We use our resources to then deliver the solution, right? That's called delivery. We use our needs to specify what the solution should even look like, right? Given these needs, this is what kind of solution we need. It's called specification or speccing. And then we use our solution to run 2 tests. One, we make sure we built it correctly. That is verification. And 2, we make sure that what we built actually solves the problem. That's called validation. And so those are the 6 tasks that anyone has to do when you're building anything, but really helpful when it comes to team projects and having a shared framework, a shared language of projects. So this morning, what I thought I'd do is talk about, how do you identify who on your team loves to verify, who on your team loves to deliver, who on your team loves to scope. Really, you could even assign those roles to people on your team, right? Who's going to be the validator on this team? Who's going to be, or on this project, right? Who's going to be the scoper? Who's going to be the verifier? So it's a nice little trick. It's a nice little trick because it gives you roles that people can embody or inhabit that makes sure you have proper coverage on your project. And what I mean is, in other words, in less jargony language, is, hey, I just want to make sure all the work's getting done, and I got to make sure that people are on it, right? And so I need to assign people to these tasks to make sure the work's getting done. So, and this doesn't even have to be explicit, right? It could be implicit in the way you go about assigning tasks to your team. You don't have to explicitly call them the specifier, for example, or the provisioner, but that could be cool. Maybe you all have little badges. I'm the team provisioner, or I'm the team scoper. That could be a good time, but not necessary. Well, what's important is for you to be able to identify what that kind of person looks like. So today, what I thought I'd do is personify these tasks, okay? In the same way you can personify a tree, right? Which just basically means you give a personality to some inanimate object. For example, a tree or a tire. If you're gonna imbue a personality into a tire, what would that look like, right? Maybe it's a kind of crazy because it goes around and around in circles, a little squeaky for some reason. Who knows? Or maybe it's really prickly and kind of aggressive because the tread is so thick. Who knows, right? If you're an animator, if your job is to be a cartoonist or an animator, you're very good at personifying inanimate objects. But if we're going to personify these tasks, right? These tasks, what would the personality of a verifier, of a verification look like? What would the personality of specification look like? And once you do that, you can kind of start to see the people on your team through that light, through that lens, right? To see who really maps onto it, who most reminds you on your team of that persona. So I thought I'd walk through the six tasks and personify them for you this morning in the hope that maybe some of these personas sound a little bit like people you work with, and that will help you say, hey, you know what? That person actually does really prefer to do scope work. They really like to do scoping. It sounds a lot like what a scoper would do. And maybe that'd go well for you because now you're putting the right people in the right places about what they really enjoy doing. Because what you don't want to do is put someone who really loves doing verification and validation work, for example, which is very much a feedback person, on some like early planning thing. It's going to stress them out. It's going to be really hard because they're going to be trying to close out a project or make sure everything's done right when the project needs to be in total idea space. It needs to be blue sky. So anyway, let's kick it off. Let's do this thing. So task number 1 is scoping. So just a refresher, scoping is those group of tasks or activities, work, whatever you want to call it, that's all around looking at what you got in terms of resources, time, budget, personnel, tools, etc. Looking at the sum total of all your resources and asking the question, well, given these resources, what needs that the project is assigned to, what needs are even addressable? What needs are solvable? What needs can we actually do something about? You know what I just realized? I don't think I turned on face tracking. So hold on one second. There we go. Sorry about that. If that made the footage look extra jittery, that is my bad. All the little details, all the little steps. But so if you're a scoper, right, what is the persona of a scoper? If we were gonna embody or really create a caricature of a personality called the scoper, ooh, maybe it's a superhero personality. What would that superhero look like? Well, first of all, there's someone who has a keen pulse. They know exactly the state of your team, of your organization, of your budget, of your schedule. They understand your resource system entirely. They're locked in, okay? They live in this world of resource availability, resource scarcity, right? It's a very much we have these constraints mentality. These are the constraints. These are the resources we have available. Donna is extremely busy for the next 2 months. Wade is not being utilized enough. We have only this much money left in the budget. We're behind on onboarding these tools for the team, etc. Okay, they have a complete mastery in their mind of your resource availability, your resource constraints, your resource scarcity or resource abundance. So they're in their minds, they live in this world of the resource system, but for a very particular reason, very, very particular reason. They're looking through that lens. Okay, so in their mind, they live in the resource system, and they look through the lens of that to outward, okay, from their point of view, they're viewing needs, okay? They're scanning the environment, looking at what needs can be addressed. They're scanning the environment, looking around, saying, hey, we can do something about that. We can't do anything about that. We can do something about that. Their whole perspective is rooted from a mentality of resources, resource availability, for the point they're pointing at, they're directing their focus toward the needs that are addressable. So when they enter into a project space, right, when the scoper walks into a room, from that mentality, they walk into a room and you start pitching ideas. You start bringing up solutions. They're going to immediately be like, what does that have to do with anything, right? You're talking about solutions. I want to know what the need is, okay? So they're going to bring you way back. They're not going to let you talk about solutions. They're not interested in solutions, to be frank. A scoper isn't there to discuss solutions. A scoper is there to address feasibility. Okay, so when you sit down with a scoper, someone who's a scoping persona, they're not interested in all of your cute little specs or how you're doing on delivery. They're not interested in whether it's passing tests or not. Okay, they're interested in one thing, and that is what needs can we realistically address given our current resource system. So what does that mean? Well, when you sit down with them and you start talking through projects, they're going to be constantly saying, unfortunately, no, we can't do that. No, we can't do that. No, 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 no. They're going to kind of sound like the no police, because at the end of the day, it's all about resource constraints. So that means, unfortunately, that sometimes people can get a little aggravated by scope work because it can feel so limiting, right? People love exploring ideas. People love speccing out solutions. People love ideating around solutions. And so the job of a scoper, their kind of growth path, is realizing that, exploring an idea is free. It doesn't cost me anything to imagine a toaster going around, hopping around to and fro, going scuba diving, for example, with some blue whale. Okay, so it doesn't cost me anything to imagine ridiculous things. It's totally free. It doesn't mean we have to go build that now. It doesn't mean we have to go make that real. No. So this is this idea of dream world. Okay, so the idea of dream world is we're just dreaming. We're just dreaming. We're ideating. We're being free. But for the scoper who lives in resource system, notice about the resource system that their mind occupies is it's all very concrete. It's all very real. It's all very, well, what team do we have? What tools do we have? What time do we have? What money do we have? Their perspective is very much rooted in a concrete organization of people, of talent, right? And so it's hard for them to want to envision or to ideate around solutions, to explore these things. Not their interest. It's not where the scoper's mindset lives. But instead, it's all around shaping and forming needs. So the growth, once again, the growth of the scoper is to let people ideate solutions, but then to gently come back to say, okay, great, those solutions sound really interesting and I'm excited to hear and see what you guys can come up with, but what need are we actually addressing here? And then to help guide and form that need, to get crystal clear on that need and to make sure that the resources you have available are going to be able to address that need. Because What you don't want, and this is the beauty of a scoper, is they keep you from looking like a fool. The scoper makes sure that you're going to be successful early, right? They're going to be the one who prevents you from agreeing to something, saying yes to something that is unrealistic, that just can't be done. And so let their no, for you who aren't good at scoping, which let's face it, is a lot of us, people who aren't good at scoping, take their no, not as an absolute no, but of saying no to the current framing of the need you're trying to address. And then ask that person, hey, is there a smaller version of this problem that you think can be addressed, that you think we can do something about? And I guarantee you they'll have an answer. They'll have an answer. They're gonna be like, well, if we just did this, if we, instead of trying to solve, world hunger, if we just cared about, elementary school kids in the cafeteria of public schools, maybe we could do something about that. Instead of building a teleportation device, which sounds really, really hard, we probably don't have the resources for that. Instead of us single-handedly curing cancer, what if we built a faster rail system? Or what if we cured, I don't know, some easier version, some benign tumor treatment? Okay, I don't know medicine very well. The point is, what ends up happening is our solutions try to solve the world. We try to solve too much with our solutions, which means that we're trying to address too big of a need, too broad of a need. And the scoper will bring you back down to reality. Let them bring you back. Let them be realistic with you, and then actually go to them to say, hey, this is the need space I'm interested in. Can you pull out from that need space what you think we can actually do in it? Can you pull out of there something that you think we can actually move the needle on? Okay, so that's the scoper. Number two, I gotta pick it up. Number two, provisioner, okay? So the provisioner lives in the opposite world. They aren't living in the resource world, no. They live in the needs space. They live in the world of needs. Everywhere they look, everything they think about is all around needs. Needs, okay? Bill needs some time off, he looks exhausted. This process needs that tool, it'd be a lot faster. This process needs to get sped up or needs to be fixed, it's broken. What else? We need more budget because we don't have enough resource here. We need more time because we're behind. They're the people that are always scanning and thinking about the needs of the people and then also the needs of your customer. When they walk into a restaurant, and they're the one who will immediately notice what needs to happen there. They live in need space. But they don't live in need space necessarily to build a solution or to spec out a solution. They live in need space to understand what resources the team or what needs to be given to equip people to build the solution. So I also call the provisioner the enabler, right? They enable, or the provider. They provide resources. What they do is they scan around, they see holes in your systems, they see holes in your team, they see holes in what's gonna stop solutions from being built, but they're gonna identify very rapidly what bottlenecks are happening in terms of resource constraints, and they're gonna work their tail off to try to provide additional resources. So in this sense, they're almost like the anti-scoper, where the scoper is about assuming your resources are fixed and constraining the needs, okay? The provisioner is gonna live in need space and use that to tell you what resources you need to get to grow your resource pie. So that is a huge complement to one another. You actually need both, right? You need provisioners and you need scopers, because the scopers keep you tethered to reality and the provisioners try to pull as much out to provide additional resources to be successful. So you really need both. Now, a provisioner is classic, leader, manager, equipper person. They're the one who makes sure everyone is prepped, everyone has everything, every resource that they're gonna need to be successful. They're gonna invest in their team. They're gonna have those one-on-ones to make sure there's no roadblocks. If they discover a roadblock, they're gonna work to try to undo it or try to equip people to undo it. They're the ones who are gonna go to bat for you when the boss is putting too much on and you guys are getting pinched. But instead of scoping the project down, again, the provisioners, they take needs as given. They're not questioning the need. The scoper questions the need. The provisioner does not question the need, right? So if a boss says, hey, I need you to go do this, the scoper would say, they'd push back immediately. I don't have enough time to do that. We're gonna limit that. I can do this part of it. You told me to do 1, 2, and 3. I can probably do 1. Where the provisioner, they'll say, okay, great, I'll do 1, 2, and 3, but I'm gonna need to hire 2 more people. Okay, you see that perspective difference. One is around constraining the need. The other is about taking the need and then requesting additional resources to get it done. So very different approaches, very different people. Oh, there's a little hummingbird. How lovely. Love hummingbirds. Yeah, so the provisioner, manager type, this is the kind of person you want to be your manager, right? They're the person you say, hey, I'm really overwhelmed with this project. And they immediately say, okay, well, how can I equip you? What additional help do you need? Do you need more time? Do you need more budget? Do you need a better tool? That is provisioning straight up. Okay, my wife, she's a very strong provisioner. She loves it. She loves provisioning. She's always asking me with what we're trying to get done, whatever it is we're trying to get done. Her finger's on the pulse. We need to go to the store. We need to go on Amazon. We need this thing. We need to buy a water purifier, right? She just knows. Task number 3, specification. So specification is interesting because they also live in need space, just like the provisioner, but they look at something totally different. So where the provisioner looks at the resources that we need to get, the specifier, all right, a spec or a specker, no, specifier. Specker sounds bad. Specifier, they're looking at the solution, right? They're trying to define the solution. They're articulating the solution given the need. So very similar, given the need, what are the solutions that address that need? Okay, so instead of saying given the need, what are the resources we should accumulate? They're saying given the need, what is the solution that we should be building towards? Very different. They're not interested in resources. These are the people that might be pretty detached actually from the practicalities of things. They might, I'm a big specification guy. I can go into Dream World and get lost, right? I can go into Dream World and totally have a blast to ideate different solutions, to play with different architectures, different designs, just be so creative and have a blast doing it. And it's really hard for me to want to come back down to reality because I know that that resource system, it's there, and it's going to constrain me. But, you know, at the end of the day, we got to build solutions using available resources. And reality is constrained. Reality is restricted. So, yeah, so a specifier, what do they look like? What is someone who loves to specify? What is the persona of a specifier? Well, this is a person who is the articulator. They articulate details of plans in general. So this person, they want to get things down in terms of design, in terms of requirements, in terms of architecture, in terms of what does the project need to be doing and actually look like? What is the solution really gonna be? This is an engineer. Salespeople, they might be more on the front end of things, right? They're really good at communicating, getting people excited about the vision for something. But you want someone who's really good at specification, really detailing the blueprints, right? The map, the design of what you're building. Because you can't go to the factory floor with some ideas in your head. That's not gonna work. You need someone who's very good at taking what's in everyone's head and saying, this is what the solution really needs to look like. This is our plan, this is our action plan. Here are all the checklists of everything we want developed. Here's all the specifications. We want this house to be, you know, I'm walking by all these houses, you know, we want a house to be 2,500 square feet, a 3-bed or 4-bed, 2.5 bath. And this is the floor plan. Here's the blueprint. Here's all the foundation work that needs to happen. Here's the grade. Here's the line for the sewer and water. Here's all the electrical. This is how it's going to flow. It's going to be every 6 feet, an outlet. Here's all of the specs for the circuit breaker and where that's going to be in the garage, right? You want someone who knows how to draft up the exact design of what you're trying to build. They are the specifier. They are the one who can do that. Now, some specifiers really depends on your personality as a person. If you're someone who really enjoys being very, maybe this is flavored by your preferences for the other tasks too, which is if you're someone who's more head in the clouds around the solution or more very, very, very detailed and concrete. Because I've seen it kind of go both ways, where some people are really good at abstract specification. This is someone who's more particular around maybe design, around the way something should look and feel, but less interested in the exact mechanics of how something should work, right? So someone who might be interested more in the user interface and user experience of a product, where someone else might be more interested in what's going on under the hood, okay? Both of those are acts of specification, but they're just interested in different parts of the system, right? Some people are more interested in how it makes the user feel and the overall experience, where another person might be interested in more of the assembly and the mechanics. Both of those are total specification acts, and both of those require a lot of attention to detail, but just about different areas. So I wouldn't get bogged down too much into the engineer only language. I really think it's anybody and everybody who really likes to dial and zoom into a particular way things come together. So for me, I'm a total specifier, but not really much about mechanical objects, more about conceptual objects. I love to specify abstract ideas and do concept engineering. At least that's what I call it. So, but most people aren't interested in stuff like that. They're going to be more interested in how to build a house, how to build an engine, how to build some machine. But all of those are acts of specification. What are the requirements? What are the design plans? What is the architecture? How are we going to actually make this thing come together? Okay, so that's the specifier. And their personality is just very much, once again, solutions focused. They're very attention to detail. They're the people that will argue over the smallest things that no one else thinks is important, but for them it is the most important thing possible. Okay, and I'm guilty of that. So let's see, number four is delivery. Okay, so this person is also focused on solutions, but not from the needs perspective or the needs point of view. They're coming from the resources point of view. So the delivery person is saying, hey, we have all these great resources, just like a scoper, but I'm gonna use them, right, to build a solution. Where the scoper says, hey, I'm gonna use these resources to define the solution, to define the need, to really articulate the need. The delivery man, as I've been called, but the deliverer, they're using the resources not to define the need, but to build the solution, right? So they're using resources in a very different way. They're gonna use all the plans that you've made, all the processes we've built up, the team, the materials, the time, the energy, the budget, and they're gonna execute. They're gonna get momentum and they're gonna make it happen, Captain. So that is a deliverer. What does this person look like? Someone who's really strong in delivery. Someone who has the persona of a deliverer. Their personality can look 1,000 different ways, but what they're interested in is getting things done. So you could have a total introvert who just crushes, 50 features a week on an app, or you can have a total extrovert who is equally as productive. So don't think about this as personality. Think about this as task preference. Where does their attention go? What do they enjoy working on? The deliverer enjoys executing specs. They enjoy fulfilling design requirements. They enjoy manufacturing and assembling the product. They enjoy seeing features get rolled out. They enjoy seeing a product get shipped, getting it assembled, making it come to reality. They enjoy seeing things move from plan into practice. And that is the heart and soul of someone who's really passionate about delivery. They're the kind of people that when they're in a meeting, they're like, okay, great. we've done enough talking, we've scoped enough, we have what we need, and let's move on, let's start building, okay? Which is great, really great. Now the downside to someone who's really strong in delivery, two things. One is they tend to be unnecessarily scrappy, right? Someone who's really strong in delivery, they might go and try to start building before it's time. And because it's before it's time, they don't have the necessary resources that might have been provisioned to them if they were a little bit more patient in that part of the process. And because of that, they have to come up with Band-Aid solutions, duct tape solutions, super glue solutions. And the product might get done, but not elegantly, okay, not cleanly. So in an early stage of an organization, you want a lot of people who are super strong in delivery, because it's not about being perfect. It's not about having a beautiful, perfect product to get going. No, it's about having a minimum viable product. It's about really having that minimum thing that's awesome. Don't get me wrong, that's awesome, but having something done. And if you get someone who's really, really strong in spec, but really, really low in delivery, you're gonna be spending a lot of years in planning. And so you really do want to have strong delivery. Now, here's the problem is if that person doesn't grow, if they don't have that check and balance, your products are going to eventually accumulate a lot of technical debt. Things are going to start breaking over time. It's not scalable. It's not growable. No one's maintaining because the way that they built it wasn't very maintainable because it was underspecified. So that is the other problem with people that are really strong in delivery, if not properly balanced, is that they can overproduce. And what I mean by that is it is possible to over deliver. It is, you hear a lot about over specifying something or under scoping things, misscoping things, misspecifying. What we don't hear much about is over delivery. And what over delivery means is you've produced so much so fast, but none of it's been verified or validated. So now you got a big bottleneck on V&V on this testing side of things, because you've been so productive. You're out of balance, you're out of proportion, you've put too much on your team, you've been overproductive, you've over delivered. And that is actually really stressful for people. That actually can be a waste of energy and resources. You need to deliver in pace with everything else. So that is the other, and I'm speaking from experience. I've been known to over deliver, and I have to slow down. I get told that all the time, slow down. You don't need to move this fast. Spend your time doing something else. Stop delivering. So that's number 4. Number 5 is verification. So this person lives in solution space, okay? They don't live in needs. They don't live in resources. They live in what exists, what is done, what has been built. That is what they view. So, and then they measure, in this case, how good of what exists against what was specified or what was implementable, right? So they're the ones doing the checklist. Hey, we wanted X, we got Y. Send it back. We need X. So they are the quality control people. They look at what was given, what was delivered to them by the deliverer, by whatever delivery process you used, and they're going to test it for quality. They're going to make sure it was done correctly. And not just quality in the sense of it's pretty, but in terms of risk, in terms of security, in terms of any metric, affordability even, given the parts that you chose for manufacturing, cover the whole gamut of characteristics of whatever you're measuring for a project. Now, someone who's really, really strong in verification, what are they looking at for the resource system, right? So they live in the solution, they're taking the solution as a given, and they're looking at the resource system, they're looking how everything was implemented, and they're evaluating it for correctness. So someone who is really strong in verification, they're gonna catch processes very quickly that are leading to bad outcomes. They're gonna be people that are evaluating your workflow, your processes, and catching issues left and right. They're also gonna be the ones looking at the solution that you built, doing the exact same thing. And then they're gonna try to trace it back, right? They're gonna trace it back. They're gonna say, hey, this defect in this product is a result of whatever they find. Bad communication, maybe a poor assembly, manufacturing process, who knows? Could really be anything. But you know, as someone who's really strong in delivery, verification, you notice someone who's really strong in verification, they love being the investigator. They can't help it. They want to investigate every little flaw and they want to trace it back to why it happened. And they're going to help you improve. They're going to be, once again, quality control. They're going to constantly make things better by bringing what's not working to light and telling you why it's not working, what happened. And then they're going to, hopefully be able to offer a recommendation on how to solve that problem. Okay, so that's verification. That's the task preferences that they like. They also might be really interested in making sure that certain metrics. Number 6, the last one, here we go, validation. I can tell I'm getting thirsty. That is okay. Almost there, guys, almost there. Validation. So validation also lives in the solution system, right? So they live in what exists, what has been built. Whether you're early or late in a project, it doesn't matter. What the current solution is might actually be nothing. The current solution might be nothing. It might be a legacy system. It might be something, right? Or it might just be a paper prototype. They live in that solution. And they're going to test the validator, right? They're going to test if that actually meets the need that has been scoped out. They're going to look at that need that has now been scoped, right? So the scoper, they live in the resource system. They come in. I kind of imagine a scoper like, have you ever rolled out dough, like Christmas cookies or some sort of, I think like a Christmas sugar cookie. Growing up, you roll out the dough, you get the cookie cutter, and you cut out the cookie, and now that's your cookie. Then the scoper kind of does that, right? I imagine the whole sheet of cookie dough as possible needs that you can address. And the scoper is the cookie cutter. They come in and they say, nope, we're gonna just scope out, we're gonna cut out this cookie, and that's what we're gonna go after. So given that little cutout, that little cookie cutout, the validator is gonna come along with your now solution and make sure that we actually solved that problem. We actually met that need. We took care of it. We fixed it, or whatever. So the validator, once again, they live in the solution, what exists, and they're evaluating it, they're comparing it to if it's meeting the need, right? This person is very important. If you're someone who's really strong in validation, what does this person look like, right? They just can't help it. They can't help but compare, right? When you're in high school and you do the essays, compare and contrast, blah, 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 blah. They are the kings and queens of compare and contrast. This is what we wanted. We needed a solution to do this, and it does it, right? In terms of solving the need, right? I need to drink some water. I guess I need to be hydrated. And eventually when I get home, I'm going to go chug a big glass of water. And then that solution, I'm gonna compare and contrast if it actually met my need, which was the feeling of parched, feeling very parched. Okay, so what does this person enjoy doing? They enjoy bringing a solution back into reality. They enjoy user acceptance testing. They enjoy any sort of testing with users, user interface testing, any sort of, what are they called? A focus group, that's what it is. They enjoy doing focus groups, right? So that you put your product on a table in a room and you see how people interact with it, what people say about it. Maybe they don't know anything. They want to know if that product really meets the need. They enjoy doing activities. They're drawn to doing activities. They're the people that are like, hey, we should A/B test this thumbnail on YouTube. Hey, we should A/B test everything. We want to know what works, what's actually gonna be helpful for people, right? They're gonna be the ones who do 4 different versions of something or want to do 4 different versions and see which one sticks the best, right? They're the ones who are gonna wanna just test everything, not to make sure it was done correctly. They don't care as much about if it's correct in the sense of quality. They care about if it works in terms of meeting the need, right? Very different perspective. Both using the solution, both living in the solution space, but using it for a very different reason, right? They're using the solution as a tool. You can almost imagine that here's our solution, it's a tool, and I wanna make sure I'm gonna use it, one, to make sure it was done correctly. And the other person, that's the verifier, the other person says, oh yeah, this is totally working. This is totally solving the problem. And so their person, their persona, their caricature, just for your team, is who on your team is constantly drawn to, hey, do the people in the wild, the people who are actually going to operate this thing, the people who have to use this in real life, do they like it? What was the last time you talked to one of your customers? Those are the people that you like for validation. Those are your natural validators. And they might also have a really big knack for how to get those needs tested. They're naturally drawn to the kinds of tests that you can run to validate those needs. Validate the solution. So that is it. That is all 6, I believe. So the big takeaway is when you're identifying who on your team serves what roles, think about what world do they live in? Do they live in the solution world? Do they live in the need world? Do they live in the resource world? Right? Where does their mind naturally occupy? And just from talking to people, you can tell pretty quickly. Need world people, right? The people who love to live in needs worlds, they're constantly scanning, they're constantly feeling like there's all these problems, right? They see problems everywhere. They're your people who tell you every little problem that they are identifying. You have resource people. They're constantly the people that are feeling maybe worried that we don't have enough. We don't have enough of something. Doesn't matter. We don't have enough time, we don't have enough money, we don't have enough people, we don't have enough tools, we don't have the right thing for that. It doesn't matter. The resource people, it's never enough. So you got the needs people, they're all about telling you the problems. The resource people, they're all about telling you we don't have enough. And then you have the solution people, and they're all about it's not good enough, right? We need it better. We need something better. It needs to get better. Better quality, and it needs to meet the need better. So it's not good enough, or it needs to get better. So those are your 3 types of people when it comes to here are the problems, it's we need more, we don't have enough, and it's not good enough. Those are the 3. Now, if you can identify which one you are, what do you complain most about? Do you complain most about the problems that you're seeing? Do you complain more about that you don't have enough resources, or do you complain more about it's not good enough? Things aren't happening fast enough. They're not quality enough, okay? Then what you do, because that's now limited you down to 1 or 2, right? So for example, let's say you complain about it's not good enough. Well, that means you're living in the solution world. So that means you're probably focusing either on verification or validation tasks. And then the simple question from there is, well, what isn't good enough? And if they say quality, if they say it wasn't done right, you got someone who's really thinking about verification. Or if you say, I could tell people don't like it, done. You're talking about validation. So learning how to spot your team, where their mindset goes, what they pay attention to, that's going to help you very, very quickly identify where you want to plug them into, how you want to leverage them on your team, and how to really make sure that they're thriving. Because at the end of the day, what they say, a happy wife, happy life, but the same thing goes with your team, right? A happy team, you're living the dream. So anyway, I got to wrap this up. I hope that was helpful, and I'll catch y'all later.